The Foundation for Springfield Public Schools, under the leadership of Executive Director Natalie Murdoch, works every day to advance the mission of Springfield Public Schools. Thanks to its many donors, the Foundation supports our schools and teachers each year with hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants. This funding ensures that students have access to resources and opportunities beyond what our normal operating budget can provide. Thanks to the Foundation, teachers are empowered to think outside of the box when planning learning experiences that engage and inspire students. While your meals are being served, we'd like to show a brief video highlighting the Foundation's work, followed by remarks from Foundation President Matt Hudson.
Since 1990, the Foundation for Springfield Public Schools has raised over $22 million in donations for SPS. Last year, we raised over $1.3 million, awarding over $1 million back into Springfield Public Schools. 55 graduating seniors received scholarships, and 314 students received new coats through Coats for Kids. We supported almost 20,000 students with back-to-school grants, and we supported 57 school sites and programs through grants and donations. For the new school year, we kicked things off with Grant Delivery Day.
We're giving away money today that's going to impact thousands of students across the district. 60 volunteers are going to go out, and we are going to give away and really make a difference in those special activities that students really look forward to at school. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to do it. We are excited to tell you that today we funded 97 grants totaling $179,008. Wonderful job. We thank you for your contribution to our students. I cannot thank you enough for making the investment that will change the workforce for tomorrow.
Learn more at supportsps.org.
My name is Matt Hudson, and I'm president of the Foundation for Springfield Public Schools and proud to be on the board of directors. The Foundation for SPS is proud to sponsor this event and honor the outstanding graduates of Springfield Public Schools. And on behalf of our board and staff, please join me right now in congratulating our inductees this year. Since 2010, the SPS Hall of Fame has inducted 38 outstanding graduates from an outstanding district. For those recognized over the past 13 years, and for those that we wait to honor here today and beyond, the success of each and the contributions that they have made professionally and personally provide an inspiration for us all. This year, the Foundation launched an alumni program known as the Alumni Connection, aimed at connecting and engaging with thousands of SPS graduates we have across the country, here locally, and beyond. Like many of you in this room, I'm a proud alumnus of Springfield Public Schools. Go Vikings. We believe that our alumni are an important part of the SPS family, and we are excited to see this program continue to grow. Our work at the Foundation could not be possible without the generous alumni and the community members that support us. To everyone who has supported our efforts through the years, making it possible to raise more than $22 million for our schools, we thank you. We are proud to be your public school foundation and proud to support Springfield Public Schools. And I have to go off script for just a second. I spoke to David Harrison last night, and at Hillcrest High School in the mid-1990s, we did the foundation did the technology telethon. Anybody remember that event? So yeah, a few of you in here. David's alignment with the foundation in particular has been around since the beginning, and it's folks like him and the contributions that are made that have really made the foundation be as successful as it is. So we thank all of those original founders that brings us to this point. I'd like to invite all of you to learn more about the Foundation for Springfield Public Schools by visiting our website, supportsps.org. And if you are a graduate, you can stay connected by visiting our alumni page, and I would encourage you to do that. Once again, thank you very much for joining us here today, and congratulations to the class of 2023.
While we enjoy our meal, we have the pleasure of listening to the Hillcrest High School String Ensemble under the direction of Mr. Nathan Fender. Join me in thanking them for being here today. Now please enjoy your lunch. As superintendent, I look forward to this event each year so that I can hear the amazing success stories about our graduates. We are fortunate that several previous Hall of Fame inductees are joining us today. Please stand as I call your name. From the class of 2014, Scott Seaman. He is a 1972 graduate of Kickapoo High School. All right. Coincidentally, Scott is Randle Chowning's brother-in-law. From the class of 2015, Susan Everett Provence is a 1971 Glendale High School graduate. She's over here to my left. Thank you, Susan, for being here today. From the class of 2020, Steve Grant is a 1972 Hillcrest High School graduate. Thank you for being here today. I was worried we were going to have to just turn the TV on and look for you. The accomplishments of all of our inductees are an inspiration for current and future students. This was a driving force behind the creation of the Hall of Fame. So each year we invite SPS students to join us. Today they are here as special guests, greeters, and escorts for our inductees. If you are a current SPS student in attendance today, please stand to be recognized. All SPS students, please stand and be recognized. I'd also like to acknowledge our Board of Education. I don't believe any of our Board of Education members are here today, but I'd like to go ahead. Dr. Judy, okay. So we do have Miss Judy Bruner. She's over here to my right. She's here. She slipped in on me. I know she was here on last night. Our board members spend many hours working on behalf of our students and staff. So once again, thank you so much to our board members, and thank you, Ms. Bruner, for being here today. Finally, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank each of you in attendance today. Many of you are parents or grandparents of our students. Some of you may even be an SPS graduate. Your support of our school district means that we can continue to make a difference in the lives of the students and prepare each of them to reach their full potential. Everything we do at SPS is intended to prepare students to be success ready when they graduate. Today, I'm excited to shine a spotlight on the success stories of just a few of our graduates, the 2023 class of Springfield Public Schools Hall of Fame. To introduce our first inductee, I'd like to invite to the stage Lily Williams, who is a junior at Central High School.
Good afternoon. Today, it is my pleasure to represent Central High School by introducing one of our exceptional alumni. David Harrison is a 1955 graduate of Central High School. He published his first children's book in 1969, which has sold more than 2 million copies. Since then, he has authored and published more than 100 books, including fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. In July 2023, Governor Mike Parson named him Missouri Poet Laureate. David's support of literacy and public education in Springfield is extensive and includes serving 6 years on the Board of Education. He is also the first Hall of Fame inductee who has an SPS elementary school named for him. On a personal note, when I was younger, my dad would read me his poems almost every night. And when I was about 10 years old, Dr. Harrison had a program at the library center, and my dad took me, and he asked for a volunteer to read a poem with him. So I got to read a poem with Dr. Harrison, so thank you, Dr. Harrison. And let's watch this video to find out more about David L. Harrison.
I was formerly a banker, and I first met David back, that would have been probably in the 80s. His family had a True Value hardware store, and they were a customer of ours. So I first knew him as a business person before I realized what an incredible talent, literary talent he was.
I would describe David as a man with the soul of a poet and a child's sense of wonder about the world, and he just carries that into his relationships with children and adults.
Back in the day when we first met, I believe he was getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, or maybe earlier, and writing until he had to go off and do a full day's work at Glenstone Block.
There are so many contributions that he's made to the community. He, first of all, I think, has made it fun to read poetry again. He has lifted up young writers as early as elementary school who are striving to be writers or poets, and he has made them celebrities. David gave a program at the library several years ago, and it was just about poetry, and families were invited, so there were little children as well as parents. He filled the library center auditorium. And in the midst of it, a little girl raised her hand with a question, and she said that she had written a poem for him. As David always does, he stopped what he was doing and said, well, why don't you come up here on the stage and read it to us? And so she very willingly went up there, and he sat on the stage with her and had her read her poem into the microphone. And of course, everyone applauded. That's the kind of person he is. He just welcomes all children and all adults who are interested in writing.
One of the many things I appreciate about him and admire about him is his ideas. He's always thinking, what could I do to help children learn better, to read better? And fortunate, I just have always found it fortunate that he called me to ask my opinion from time to time.
I would describe David as a percolator. He is always percolating ideas for poems, ideas for stories, ideas about how to make the world interesting, fun, no matter what age level you are.
David Harrison has many years of writing experience, starting with multiple tries to publish a children's picture book that finally ended in the success of The Boy with the Drum, and moved through picture books to various kinds of nonfiction, and then poetry, I believe, is the last addition to his genre, to his work, and it just seems to keep getting better and more successful. And all the while that he has been writing and being creative, he's also held full-time jobs.
Well, I think of him as a Springfieldian and the Springfieldian audience, but I forget is he's got an audience all across the country, probably across the world, that are fans of his. So again, to have that voice representing our state and representing us, I think it brings a different dynamic because he's bringing it to us from that fresh, wide-eyed perspective of children.
He is quite the Renaissance man. And at the same time, being on the school board, eventually president of the school board, doing marvelous work to raise money for the Springfield libraries. He told me that it wasn't until he retired that he felt he was a full-time writer. But all through those years, he was very, very productive and quite successful.
Now, please welcome to the stage 1955 graduate of Central High School, David L. Harrison.
Thank you so much. It's such a privilege to be inducted into this particular group of individuals who, like I, graduated from Springfield Public School District. I had such a great experience as a student at Jarrett and Central and gained an education that has been my ground all my life. At Jarrett, I was encouraged to develop my love for music, and I also met Larry Wakefield, who became my lifelong friend. Lost Larry earlier this year, but his wife, Mary Ann, is still with us. At Central, I continued with music, lettered in baseball, hard to believe now. And I met the woman who was going to be my wife, Sandy Kennan, who's now Sandy Harrison. So thank you for all that. As was mentioned, I'm now, at my age, appointed as the Poet Laureate of the state of Missouri. Never imagined something like that could happen to me. Now here's the bad news. I'm about to read you a poem. I can't help it, it's my job. Every poet laureate coming in is required to write a poem about the state of Missouri. And so I read this poem for the first time in public recently at Drury University during its 150th anniversary. So this is my second chance to read the poem, Missouri. They ask a child, "Why do you like Missouri?" The child answered, "I live here. My friends live here. I love Missouri. It's my home." It was a good answer. They asked a student, "Why do you like Missouri?" The student answered, "In school I learned the first people canoed Missouri waters, cupped their hands at its springs, drew bows in deer-high grass, lived well off the land." The teacher said, "Explorers came, wagons followed, packed with Bibles, fiddles, cooking pots. Folks built cabins, churches, schools, outposts, the seeds of small communities. The farmer, voice soft as tilled soil, said Missouri is dogwood trees, front porches, barns, lakes. It's rows of corn whispering in river-rich earth, frogs at night serenading the moon." The business person said, "Missouri is the heartbeat of many nations, the confluence of cultures, sharing visions, growing together." The writer said, "It's original thinkers, Truman, Carver, Benton, Twain. It's serious fishermen, rabid fans. They show me state, Missouri." They asked an older person, "Why do you like Missouri?" The older person answered, "I live here." My friends live here. I love Missouri. It's my home. It was a very good answer. Thank you.
Our next inductee will be introduced by Madeline Tunney, a senior at Glendale High School. Please join me in welcoming Madeline to the stage.
Thank you, Dr. Lathan. Music is a universal language, and these three inductees have used it for more than 50 years to inspire and entertain. Steve Cash, Randle Chowning, and Larry Lee brought together their individual talents as musicians, vocalists, and songwriters to form the Ozark Mountain Daredevils. Their music gained national attention after signing a record deal with A&M Records. The Daredevils' first album included the hit song, If You Want to Get to Heaven, sung by Randle and co-written by Steve. Their biggest hit, Jackie Blue, was written by Steve and Larry. Steve, a 1964 graduate of Parkview High School, performed with the Daredevils for more than 4 decades. He also expressed his creativity as a painter, poet, and author. He passed away in 2019. Larry and Randle met while attending Glendale High School. They graduated in 1965 and 1968, respectively. Several years later, Randle approached Larry about getting together with other songwriters and working on material together. As founder of the Daredevils, Randle recruited Larry, Steve, and 3 other musicians to create the iconic band known for its unique vocal harmonies. Randle performed as the band's lead vocalist and lead guitarist. Following his career with the Daredevils, Larry spent more than 20 years working in Nashville as a songwriter, session musician, and record producer. He helped create 13 #1 hits for Alabama and also performed and toured with Jimmy Buffett. Randle and Larry both received the Quill Award from the Missouri Writers Hall of Fame, which is the first time it was presented to songwriters. Today, Randle and Larry continue to share their musical talents as solo artists, writing and recording their own songs. Here is a video that highlights the careers of Randle Chowning, Larry Lee, and Steve Cash.
50 years ago, Ozark Mountain Daredevils released its first album, setting the band on course to become an iconic country rock band known for its unique vocal harmonies and top 40 hits. In 1971, Randle Chowning recruited Larry Lee, Steve Cash, and 3 other musicians to form the band. In 1973, they signed a recording deal with A&M Records and headed to London to record their self-titled album, which included their first hit song. If You Want to Get to Heaven hit number 25 on the Billboard Hot 100, and the critically acclaimed album was ranked among the 100 top pop albums that year. Their best-known song and biggest hit, Jackie Blue, came in 1975 following the release of their second album. The song reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and made it number 1 on Cashbox Top 100. Randle and Larry continue to pursue their passion for music and songwriting as solo artists. Steve passed away in October 2019.
I think one of the things that really set the Daredevils off early were influenced by the big rock bands, but they also were from the Ozarks, and their music together really came together to portray a unique sound.
And so we had kind of this quirky country rock pop, like a chicken train.
To talk about Larry was as a founding member of the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, and during that time he wrote their biggest hit, Jackie Blue. The Daredevils were an important part of the country rock movement of the 70s. He first caught my ear literally as a member of the Daredevils as an outstanding vocalist. I began to realize that I was drawn to a lot of the songs that he sang lead on. He had also written them, and he was an outstanding songwriter. He was never content to just rest on his laurels. Larry continued always to pursue the music. He produced 13 number ones for Alabama alone.
He spoke to me through his music, and specifically the song Spaceship Orion that was on the very first album. In the history of American music, I think he's one of the most important persons that have ever come out of the Ozarks. What makes Larry stand out as a writer and musician is he has his finger on the pulse of what's happening around him and is able to transfer that feeling.
Yeah, if I had to sum up Randle, I think, just sort of that clever, funny, kind of a guy. Thinks outside the box. It's a fun environment because it's a lot of back and forth. We record a little bit and then we'll listen to some of Randle's jokes, or some of Randle's stories. Obviously, he's got a lot of great stories. He would probably laugh about this, but we'd spend 4 or 5 hours on the song, and all of a sudden, we'd say, "I get it. I understand what you're saying now."
Randle has a really good work ethic. He was the guy, I think, that really put those guys together. I don't know if they would ever gotten together if it wasn't for Randle. I had a friend that had a tape recorder, real tape recorder that you could overdub with. He called me later on and said, "Could you call that guy and see if he'd be willing? I've got some songs I'd like to kind of put down on tape." He was just learning to write songs. And for the next 2 years, that's what we did.
When you get to know Randle, he's just a very passionate and loving person. He just lives life to the fullest.
In 1969, early in 1969, he went to California, Northern California, San Francisco. And I followed him out there about 3 or 4 months later. And we had a blast. It was the summer of love, the hippie thing was going on. But we were really interested in poetry and writing. And City Lights Books was there. We spent a lot of time there. But we also heard that one of our favorite poets was giving a class at UC Berkeley. So we just went over there one night and waited till the class was over and just walked up to Lou Welch and asked him if we could audit his class. He said, "Well, if you'll come have a beer with me, we'll see." And so then he let us audit his class, and we wrote some poetry, and he said, it's terrible, because he was really good. But we got better because of that, and we just became even better friends. And we spent quite a bit of time in San Francisco and Berkeley. But we wanted to learn the blues together, and he had a harmonica. And so we'd just record 12-bar blues. Till I always said, let's play something else. I got to learn how to do this.
He just had this basic, rootsier kind of approach to the music. Because he was more primitive. We were all primitive musicians, but he was the most primitive, but did some of the best stuff.
And he wrote a book called The Meth. It's a trilogy. He wrote 3 books. And it's not a real popular book. It never did much because he had it published from an English publishing company that did cookbooks. And I kept telling him, "Steve, get an agent. And he didn't care about that kind of stuff. But I also want to say he always respected and took care of his family. Cody and Star meant the world to him and his grandchildren. I just want to say he was a really good guy.
Now, please welcome to the stage Randle Chowning, Larry Lee, and Cody Cash, representing his father, Steve Cash.
Well, thank you. I've seen a lot of people last night and today that literally I haven't seen in 30 years that I was pretty familiar and close friends with. But it's amazing about Springfield. It's just big enough. If you're not in touch, you'll go that long, you won't see people that you were around if you don't stay in your rabbit run, so to speak. But I really appreciate being a part of this. As David said, I echo that, being up here with all these guys. And it's especially special to me if you consider my scholastic record. My parents were content with average grades, and I worked diligently to be average. I'm sorry, but you know, I was a kid that daydreamed and looked out the windows in class in elementary school, and I was also generally the first one on the playground at recess, and the last one back in. So that was me in elementary. I attended Hickory Hills Junior High, Kickapoo Junior High. And Hickory Hills at that time was out where Menards is, out on the east side of town. I call it Maynard's. I like that place. But and Kickapoo is now Cherokee Middle School on Plainview Road. Is that right? I think it is. That was the old Kickapoo Junior High. And 64, 65 was my freshman year at Glendale. And Glendale, at that time, had a number of accomplished musicians that were part of the student body. Mike Bungie and Larry Lee and Bill Jones, and there were others. So I felt lucky to be around these guys as a freshman and trying. At that point, I was just getting into where I could play, and I always wanted to write. I just always had an imagination. I was a daydreamer, like I said, and I think you just have to have that imagination if you're going to be a good writer. And at any rate, these guys were really accomplished, and I watched and listened to them in pep assemblies, and that was the first time I saw Larry Lee play drums. And I remember I would see him in the halls, and he had Beatle boots. And I thought, way cool, man. You know. So anyway, my senior year was 1968. And by that time, I was coming along pretty good. I was really getting into playing, and I attended, strangely enough, I attended Votech school in the afternoons in 1968, and I took industrial sheet metal because I had an uncle that had a tin shop. So I was kind of curious about it, but honestly, they played Top 40 radio all afternoon over there. So I got to listen to Kick Radio play all the pop stuff of the day. So I'm sorry, I have to admit that. So at any rate, eventually I went to Southwest Missouri State, and Larry went off to stint in the Navy, and I was about in my fourth year of college and actually playing professionally by that time. And Larry came back from the Navy, and we just kind of loosely became acquainted. We'd bump into each other in local clubs, and he was in a different band. And ironically, so at any rate, I saw that time came that he was in between bands. And so I immediately went over there. He didn't know me that well. And I played him some probably pretty bad tapes that I had of songs. And I said, I really want to get together with guys that are doing original stuff. I'm just dying to do this. I just can't help myself. I was just pretty much over my skis at that point. And so I said, would you get together with me? And I said, I've been trying to get John Dillon to talk to me. And he said, he talks to me, and he says, yeah, come on, we'll get together then or next week. And then he cancels and stuff. So Larry said yes. He could have easily said no. And but he didn't. And as an aside, at the time, I was the only guy out of all the Daredevils, the only one that was in a working band at that moment, which is pretty unbelievable. And the band I was in was playing over on the patio at MSU. And I had encountered Steve Cash a few times, and I knew what he was doing, and kind of knew him loosely. And so we're playing over at MSU at the student union, and I look out there in the crowd, and I see Cash wandering around. So on a break, I went straight to him. I said, you know, I love what you're doing. I think this could really work. You know, those songs that you're coming up with are cool. And he said, you need to talk to John Dillon. I said, I have been talking to John Dillon. And so here's what's crazy. So Larry and John and I got together immediately. I think I know as well as I, when our voices combined, we all kind of went, uh-oh. I mean, I think they all did, but never asked them, but I did. I went, holy crap. And so at any rate, John was good friends with Steve Cash. So Larry and John and I got together about 2 or 3 times, and he said, we got to get Cash in here. And the rest, they say, is history. And that was the start of the Ozark Mountain Daredevils. I want to ask my best friend and my wife, Janie Simon Chowning, please stand up and wave, because she's the only one that has helped me from self-destruction in the last 30 years. So thank you all. I appreciate it.
I'm almost overwhelmed to be here today, because this is an honor that I least expected. When I was first contacted about doing this, my first thought was there has to be a mistake, because Larry Lee's a very common name, and I figured there had to be somebody else besides me. Because to say I graduated from Glendale High School in 1965 as an exemplary student, would be a far-fetched reality. When I walked across the stage and was handed my diploma, in fact, that diploma was really just given to me because I didn't earn it. There's nothing Hall of Fame worthy in the resume of my Springfield public school days. But now I realize, being here today, that I'm receiving this honor not so much for my scholastic activities throughout my high school years, but more for the life that I've lived. To stand up here and talk about myself, the places I've been, the things I've done, for me would feel self-gratifying, not in my nature, and truthfully probably be kind of boring anyway. So I think it's much more important that I spend this time to speak more about what life has taught me, to maybe pass a few of the accumulated observations I've made to the students that are here today. Turns out my life has been one of observation and contemplation, in search of silent places to reflect, always looking for the right words. When I was only a few years older than the graduates now, I wrote a song about a spaceship of all things. Like only a very few of the many songs that I've written in my life, those lyrics in that song flowed from my fingers to a pen, to paper, without any conscious thought. They appeared right out of the ether. But now, somehow, 50 years later, it somehow saddens me to see that many of the lines in that song are relevant today. So I have a few observations from this life of mine that I'd like to pass along to the students that are here today. One being to always remain open to life's mysteries. Take time to daydream, because daydreams nourish your imagination. Try to slow down enough to be conscious of what is happening in between the seconds, and to do your best to understand and appreciate all the things that are different in life. Also, don't be afraid to be alone. To be alone doesn't necessarily mean it's a lonely experience. The world you are entering is a far, far different place from the one like I lived at your age. I could try to list the differences, but it would only depress us both. I can only hope that your generation does a far better job of being a good steward to this good earth, and that you foster your children to be caretakers also. There have been many sunrises and sunsets that have gotten me to here. And today, I came as I am. I'm the person I became. And it took me 76 years to get here, and I wanted it to show. I want to thank Teresa Bigelow and the Springfield Public Schools Hall of Fame Committee for recognizing my unworthy achievements. Thank you very much.
Obviously, I was not in the band, but I get to represent my father, Steve Cash, and to continue the theme of, well, you're going to hear everything through the filter of a child, too, and what their parent chose to share with them about their high school experience. And it very much mirrors what Larry and Randle said, because he never spoke of his academic achievements whatsoever. And in fact, the most memorable thing that I think my sister and I can recall is what he called creative vandalism. And I don't know if you were involved in some of this, Jim, but it involved, I don't know, spray painting abstract phrases on walls just to see how people would react when looking at them, or lighting the intersection of Sunshine and Glenstone on fire. So one way to phrase creative vandalism is vandalism. There was not much greater than that to it, but those were the things that stuck with us, and his stories about basketball and how that had a real impact on him. So as far as I know, Coach Harding had a huge impact on his life, and I was talking to Gail Frederick before this, and he shared some stories too. So there were these things that weren't overtly leading down the path that he went that happened, but those were the things that he shared with us and that shaped the artist that he eventually became. So being here, why I want to speak for him is say, I think this would be hilarious to him. That he'd be shocked that he got included in the Springfield Hall of Fame because of his less than stellar performance while he was a student. But he loved education. I mean, he loved the act of education. Excuse me. And there were so many things that he wanted to learn, and people who knew him throughout his life, he was just voracious in acquiring weird esoteric bits of wisdom that he wanted to share too. He just loved that idea of learning and continuing to learn more throughout his entire life, and he passed that on. I mean, my sister became an educator. She's in Rolla as a high school English teacher. I've taught philosophy at Missouri State. So we love that act. So in terms of recognizing him, I think for the school district, it's nice because he just loves education, or loved education so much. But he also would have been really, I think, excited to see this year's inductees and to be included in that you have a journalist, you have a poet and a writer, and then musicians and songwriters. And to show that that's what Springfield Public Schools want to celebrate is fantastic, because each of those fields, you have areas where you're trying to broaden people's perspectives rather than limit them. And you look at some of the cultural context we're in now, where public schools and the humanities are criticized heavily, but now we're celebrating people that are opening eyes to greater perspectives and not leading with fear and intolerance, but leading with possibility and potential. And so that's fantastic. So hats off to the selection committee for that. But that's where, in closing for me, I don't have much to say, but I think what he would have liked the most is that, say the next time you're at your schools and you see a vandal doing something, just remember they have potential, they could be in the Hall of Fame. So.
Now I'd like to introduce our final inductee. I'd like to welcome to the stage Emily Clotfelter, who is a senior at Hillcrest High School. Emily.
As a student journalist and current member of the HTV staff, I am honored to introduce Daniel E. Arnall, who is a 1992 graduate of Hillcrest High School. When he attended Hillcrest, he was instrumental in starting the first HTV broadcast journalism class. That experience started him on a career that would lead to earning both an Emmy Award and an Edward R. Murrow Award for breaking news coverage. For more than 20 years, Daniel has reported stories and led news teams at ABC, NBC, and Bloomberg. Currently, he is Senior Vice President of News Programming for MSNBC NBC News Group, where he is responsible for managing all news programming for MSNBC reports. While at NBC, he led the team that produced Nightly News Weekend, helping it achieve the position of most watched weekend network news broadcast. He has had a similar impact on viewership growth while at MSNBC. Daniel graduated cum laude from University of Missouri's School of Journalism and earned a master's degree with honors from the Graduate School of Journalism at Columbia University. Before becoming a journalist, Daniel created a venture-funded .com company, which he sold within 6 weeks of its launch. Let's watch a video to find out more about Daniel Arnall.
If it weren't for Springfield Public Schools, Dan and I would not have met, because it was Hillcrest High School's broadcast television program led by Coach Davis, Dave Davis.
You know, it was pretty clear to me he had the heart of a journalist, the instincts of a journalist right away. When we started the course his sophomore year, he was doing stories, and Dan was never afraid of something edgy. He was never afraid to push an envelope, even as a kid in high school.
That put Dan on a career path in broadcast journalism. And Dan and I met because we were both working at ABC News in New York. And we both had a shared passion for journalism and storytelling. And it was a path that he started on in high school. So after graduating college, Dan moved out to Seattle, Washington, where he ultimately founded a company with somebody else that grew to, I think it was 60 employees. And Dan was the co-founder and co-head of an internet company. And then when the internet bust happened in the 90s, he thought, well, gee, I meant to go into broadcast journalism. I ended up on this little side journey. And he thought, well, what I'll do is I'll apply to whatever the best journalism graduate school is in the country, and if I get in, I'll go. So he applied to the Columbia University School of Journalism, and he got in, and he said that he sold everything he owned and came to New York City with a suitcase.
I've known Dan for about 25 years, and we first met when I was the business correspondent at ABC News, and I hired him to be my editorial producer. When we were working together at ABC News, we did a story about the pension crisis and people who had worked all of their lives only to have kind of a bait and switch at the end, and to discover that after 20 years of, say, working in a bottling plant and expecting that they'd have a pension of $600 a month, all of a sudden it was going to be $152 a month. That was a story that we were very proud of, and that we earned an Emmy for as a team.
His name's on the Emmy trophy with Peter Jennings and a few other notables at ABC for a series they did.
I've worked with Dan for 4 years now, very closely, in his capacity as SVP of news programming for MSNBC, which means that he oversees all the reports hours 7 days a week for MSNBC's cable programming. And what we've seen in terms of viewership growth, I think, demonstrates the incredible job that Dan has done at the helm of that. One moment that I specifically remember with Dan is in the beginning of COVID, we had to make quick, decisive actions. And Dan was at the center of that rapidly evolving situation. We had to move teams home fast for their safety, and yet at the same time had to juggle keeping a 24-hour cable news network on the air.
He's a problem solver too. I've always said about Dan that he's the kind of person I want to have in the foxhole with me, because he's smart, he's resourceful, he keeps his cool, he's thinking 2 steps ahead, and he's not going to let you down. One thing I really respect about Dan is that he has a very steady internal compass. He's well grounded, and he feels like a fixed presence at a time when things can kind of swirl around you.
He is probably in our Mount Rushmore of HTVers. I think he's probably one of them. Nothing about his success surprises me because I know him, because I know his family, because I know how hard he'll work. So I'm tickled to see him get this recognition from the district.
Now, I'll wait. Now, please welcome to the stage 1992 graduate of Hillcrest High School, Daniel E. Arnall.
Would you guys indulge me for a second? Because, I get to work in talking to lots of people a lot of the time, but I never get to stand in front of a room where I get to see the people I'm talking to. So I'm going to turn around just a sec. Everybody, seriously, get yourselves ready. We're going to do this. Say hi. Hi. Thank you. Really, I just wanted to make sure that bear was, in fact, stuffed and not real. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today, and one of the great honors of my life to be inducted into the Springfield Public Schools Hall of Fame. To share this moment with and get to know the other inductees has been exceptionally meaningful. The speeches today were great. David, Randle, Larry, Corey. I'm so proud to share this day with you guys. I'm also excited to be here with my parents today. They're right over there, table 7, with my goofy photo on it. Mom and Dad, everything I've accomplished is because of your love and support. Thank you so much. One of the curses of being a journalist is that you see stories everywhere, and today is no exception. We heard from the Daredevils. I think I've got a Case in point, you see, during my 13 years in Springfield Public Schools, there was a lot of talk about a permanent student record. And the fact that I've been inducted and they've been inducted makes me think there was something fishy going on here. I certainly had my own run-ins with administration in my time. For example, visits to the principal's office after being way too loud in a hallway while classes were going on. A lunchroom scuffle on pizza day, and well, that time when I wrecked an entire year of a 7th grade biology class at Pleasant View Junior High. You see, on the first day of class, I called the teacher a name, and all of the students kept repeating it. I called Mrs. Butler Grandma on day 1, and pretty much everyone kept it up all year. Maybe it was okay, though. She was, in fact, my grandmother. Needless to say, my permanent record appears to have been either misplaced, the Daredevils as well, or it never really existed. Keep that in mind, kids in the back. I promise you, I'll get to the bottom of this. Seriously though, being a journalist has another downside. We spend most of our time in the here and now. If something's live and breaking, we are all over it, but looking back, we'll leave that to the historians. Getting this award has afforded me a chance to think back on my time in my hometown, a gift I rarely get to open. Growing up on Springfield's north side, just a short bike ride from Pleasant View Elementary and Junior High, I knew school as a safe place where teachers, just like my grandma, encouraged us not to just to do well academically, but to see ourselves as part of a community that needed us and wanted us to succeed. In some ways, my experience was unique. Both of my parents attended the exact same schools where I went from kindergarten to senior year. Weird. Most of the kids who were with me in Mrs. Clark's kindergarten class in 1979 would end up walking with me across the stage at Hammond Student Center to get a high school diploma in 1992. Even weirder. And along that way, I can tell you, that cohort was well served by teachers and administrators who saw our talents and needs and found a way to serve both in their classrooms. To say that I'm grateful would be an understatement. I distinctly remember falling in love with storytelling in Dr. Thurman Aldridge's 5th grade classroom as he read out loud a great book, Where the Red Fern Grows, in a way that made 30 10-year-olds realize that the written word could be just as entertaining and impactful as a new episode of the A-Team. It's not hard to track my current love of an incisive question back to Dina Butcher's speech and debate class and program at Hillcrest High School. And every day I have the privilege of walking into 30 Rock to work with an immensely talented group of journalists who produce that news programming on MSNBC. I think back to lessons I learned in Dave Davis's Broadcast 1 class. I got to go today and meet some of his current students. I learned something there that I'll take back to New York with me. But it wasn't just the classroom lessons that stuck with me. Seeing neighbors and family members like my mom and grandma who took on the often underpaid and underappreciated work in our schools taught me about sacrifice and gave me an example of people whose work wasn't all about money, but about building civic capital and service to our community. I'm happy to say that their work inspired many in my generation to jump into education in some capacity. I was thinking about it. 6 family members working in schools, and my wife Jill, who is a 5th generation New York City public school grad, is serving on the school board on the Upper West Side. All of them looking for a way to pay forward what they were given in our public school classrooms. It would take hours to name the scores of teachers who paved my path and inspired me. I'd like to take a moment to say to all of them, thank you. For the students here today, I'd offer this word of encouragement. Your hometown is a place where the community has invested in a school system that has everything you need to build the future you want. All of us honored here today are proof of that. The adults who show up in your classrooms and cafeterias, administrative offices and locker rooms believe in you and want you to do your best. It's really all they ask. You'll honor them and Springfield, Missouri by building a lifelong love of learning and finding new ways to serve the community that you call home. I cannot wait to see what you guys accomplish in the future. I hope to be there to report on it. Thank you.
We'll take one more picture. One more picture. Let's move over here just a little bit. Right there. Once again, congratulations to our Hall of Fame inductees. Just to share, just a challenge to our inductees. So Randle and Larry, anytime you want to come and jam at one of our high schools, feel free to come on out and jam. David, if you'd like to write a poem about what it means to be in the Hall of Fame, we will accept that poem to be read at a future Hall of Fame luncheon. And then Daniel, I need you to take a message back to New York City. I want you to let Hoda and Savannah know I said hello. I want you to let Lester know I said hello. If they ever need a fill-in, let me know. And finally, you tell Al Roker, anytime he mentions Springfield, Missouri, when he does the weather, we get so excited down here. And your final challenge is to tell the wonderful story of why we need to cancel school, sometimes 5 days in a row here in Springfield, Missouri. That's your challenge. Once again, thank you all for attending the 14th annual SPS Hall of Fame luncheon to celebrate these outstanding Springfield Public Schools graduates. Let's give them another round of applause. Our inductees were influenced early on by our teachers who prepared them to achieve their goals and dreams. Every day, our 24,500 students look to SPS teachers for support and encouragement. If you are a current or former teacher or administrator in our district, please stand so that we may recognize you for your service in educating the leaders of tomorrow. Please stand. Sponsors, thank you once again for your support. Foundation for Springfield Public Schools, 417 Magazine, Ad Smith Marketing and Advertising, KY3, Maddox New Prater Eye Center, and Ozark's Coca-Cola Dr. Pepper Bottling Company. Finally, I'd like to remind you to watch our website, sps.org, next April for information about how you can determine who will be inducted into the 2024 Hall of Fame. If you are an SPS graduate, I would also encourage you to join the SPS Alumni Connection to stay informed about upcoming reunions and other alumni events. You can read more details in the event program. Thank you for coming and enjoy the rest of your day.